Hey guys, RanterInShades here, exercise my First Amendment rights vlog style. And before I start this Q&A here, I just want to make a quick little PSA to my subscribers. If you ever see an article being shared from a site called Heaviermetal, please don't ever share it. Please don't ever take it seriously. Heaviermetal is one of the most satirical, clickbait bullshit sites, and whenever I see people share articles from them, I always just think, oh god, no, why are you taking this seriously? They're like the Onion of music news sites, and they're never factual, so thus ends this little PSA here. Now on with the Q&A. Oliver Hayho asks, do you like Marilyn Manson, and if so, what is your favorite of his albums? Well,
Hey guys, fuckers, listen up. I know you don't like Marilyn Manson all that much, but you should know that Marilyn Manson is gonna put you in your place.
In all seriousness, I like some of his music, but I'm not exactly the hugest on Manson. I like a good bit of his songs, like, This Is the New Shit. Great song. If I had to pick a favorite album of his, it would either be Antichrist Superstar, Golden Age of Grotesque, or Mechanical Animals. Cloud Wizard asks, I'd really like to hear your opinions on Iron Maiden. I think they're probably the most important band in the shaping of heavy metal sound and lyrics, but in the US, go overlooked when it comes to that. I would have to disagree with that last part. Don't get me wrong, I love Maiden. I think they have an awesome sound and have made some of the most influential albums in the history of metal, but honestly, they're also probably one of the most overrated bands in all of metal, and I'm not saying this as means of disrespecting them. I think Maiden's great. Hell, they were the first concert that I ever went to, but whenever it comes to people talking about metal and debating metal, so many people just never seem to want to let go of bringing Maiden up. It's like their go-to argument for everything, whether it be quality metal or whether such and such is better than such and such and crap like that, and it just gets kind of annoying. I view Iron Maiden fans sort of like how I view Pink Floyd fans and Led Zeppelin fans and probably Slayer fans as well, although to a much lesser extent than that. Cooper Slyking asks, how does it feel to be graduating from college? Really fucking emotional, Cooper. Really fucking emotional. I was gonna talk about this in a separate vlog, but I guess I'll talk about it now. For the longest time, I have been really dreading the idea of graduating because that means I sort of need to let go of this safety blanket, I guess you could say, of being in college when it comes to having a place to live and finances and stuff along those lines, and it just gets really emotional, and that's where I've sort of been these last few months, really, so that's the best way I can put it. Along with that, there's also the various emotions surrounding, you know, what's to come next. Like, for now, I'm having to go back to Mass for the time being until my job situation can sort of be sorted out. After that, my plan is to move back out to New York. Me and Chris, my roommate, are going to continue living together, and that should be sweet. Hopefully it's not too long of a wait, and hopefully time can be well spent and I can be productive and stuff like that. And we'll see how that all goes out. So that's sort of what's going on with that. There's also the fear of not being able to find the job that I want, even with the internship that I had this past semester, along with other such experiences under my belt, as well as the fear of GOA breaking up or one of the members leaving for whatever reason. So I'm also preoccupied with emotions surrounding those. So that's the extent of how emotional this is. Julio Gonzalez asks, 1, do you listen to Deftones? If so, what is your favorite album by them? Deftones are very good. They're one of the most important and unique sounding bands within alternative metal. And if I had to pick a favorite album of theirs, it would probably be White Pony. Invisibility asks, Metallica or Megadeth? I'm gonna go with Megadeth for this, and I have a few reasons for that. For one, I've been listening to Megadeth longer than I have Metallica. For two, Rust in Peace is one of my favorite albums of all time, and none of Metallica's albums are really in that ranking for me, just my opinion. And for three, they had Marty Friedman. And just about every guitarist that's been in Megadeth, including Dave Mustaine, I personally rank higher than Kirk Hammett, generally, especially Marty Friedman. So there's your answer there. Katie Hopcraft asks, what are your favorite pop-punk bands? Well, Bayside is one of my favorite bands of all time, so they would definitely be my favorite in that genre. I also really like Reliant K, Sum 41, Jimmy Eat World, Green Day, of course, a lot of the newer generation bands like State Champs and Knuckle Puck and Story So Far, and I know people are gonna bring up, their singer kicking the girl and whatnot. That's his problem. It doesn't really change my opinion on the music. Yellow Card, Anne Berlin, Real Friends, The Used if you consider them pop punk, and those would be my favorites within pop punk. Do you like Beastie Boys? Yes, I do like the Beastie Boys. I think they have some great albums under their belts, such as License to Ill and Paul's Boutique. Believe it or not, they were actually, before MCA died, they were the group that I wanted to be my very first rap show. But that unfortunately isn't happening, and I don't know who my first rap show is going to be, if I even have one. We will see about that. But the Beastie Boys are one of my first favorites in rap, definitely. What is your favorite actor? I think you mean who is my favorite actor. I'm not sure I really have one. My favorite actors would include people like Leonardo DiCaprio, Samuel L. Jackson, Jonah Hill, if you're wanting to go into comedic actors. He's been making some really good movies, definitely, and that is all that's coming to mind. What is a band you like but people hate? Just about every band I talk about in the What's Wrong With series, pretty much. Derek Martinez asks, what are your thoughts on Crush 40? I really like them, and I always get really excited whenever people mention Crush 40. I mean, I've never played any of the Sonic games because we've never owned any Sega systems, and we've just never owned any Sonic games and whatnot, but it is interesting knowing Crush 40 pretty much made the music for the Sonic games and whatnot. They're a pretty alright hard rock band, and a funny story involving Crush 40 and whatnot. When James, the drummer of Gardens, when he first started playing with us, one of the first things he said about our music was that it reminded him of Sonic Adventure music, and I'm like, wait, you mean Crush 40? And he's like, yes, and I'm like, no way, someone else knows Crush 40, yes! Alex Swift asks, do you like any of Steven Wilson's music? A little bit, yeah. I mean, I do like a fair amount of Porcupine Tree, particularly the albums Deadwing and Fear of a Blank Planet. And as far as Steven Wilson solo, the albums of his I would probably consider my favorites would be the albums Grace for Drowning and The Raven That Used to Sing, as well as Insurgents. What prog rock / prog metal bands do you like? Do you even know what you just asked me? We'd be here for hours if I were going to talk about all the progressive music that I like. I mean, you got Dream Theater, you got Periphery, you got a bunch of others, Rush, you got Liquid Tension Experiment, you got way too many others. What do you think of Rise Against? Rise Against are fucking amazing. They're definitely one of my favorites as far as modern melodic hardcore. I am never disappointed by their music. It always puts me in a really good hardcore mood listening to their music. Favorite album of theirs would probably have to be Endgame. Either that or Appeal to Reason or Suffer and Witness. What do you think of the band Ashes Warriors? I have never heard of that band, sorry. Anthony Westover asks, how tall are you? I'm 5'4". I'm really tiny. I mean, here's another story about the first time that I met Cult of Clusterfuck in person when Gardens was playing a gig out in New Jersey, and being that he's from Jersey, I asked if he wanted to come. And this is the first time we had ever met each other in person, and the first thing he says to me is, "God damn, you're short." Savage Pitmon asks, 1. What is your favorite female artist, bands, and albums? I'm not going to talk about albums, I'll talk specifically about artists. My favorite female artist is, without a mind, the beautiful Orianthi. Not only is she really fucking pretty, but she is an amazing guitarist. Other female-fronted groups and artists that I like would include Flyleaf, Nightwish, Phantom Blue, this really underrated all-female glam band that was on Shrapnel Records. Also Epica, Destiny Potato, Kitty, Arch Enemy, can't forget them, as well as The Agonist. Two, what is your favorite song you have done with your band Gardens of Acadia? This one. 3. What is your favorite and least favorite year in music? My favorite year in music, one year I cling to for some reason, I'm not sure, would be 1992. There's just a lot of stuff going on that year, and it's just an interesting year where, you know, some of the last really good glam releases were coming out, and, you know, a lot of alternative music was really starting to become prominent, and hip-hop, of course, was starting to put out some really good material. 92 is a pretty interesting year. I also like 98, as well as 2004. And if we want to go to the 80s, my favorite year in the 80s would probably be 87. And my least favorite year in music is without a doubt 2009. I hated just about everything, at least in the mainstream, that was coming out that year. This was when I was a freshman in high school, and it was just a really annoying time. 4. What is your favorite kids network in the 90s? Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, Disney, or Fox Kids? Definitely Nickelodeon. Like I think I mentioned in the Cartoons Suck These Days video, I've always been more of a Nickelodeon guy. I was more or less raised on Nickelodeon, with Hey Arnold being my favorite show growing up and whatnot, and it's still a show I love. Cartoon Network didn't really become something that I watched until a little bit later in my childhood, but there's some really quality material from that channel that was out in the 90s. I never watched much Disney outside of a few episodes of Recess, including the movie, as well as a few episodes of Kim Possible. And I've never watched any Fox Kids at all. 5. Do you have any celebrity crushes? I have a few. One would be Orianthi, who is unfortunately dating Richie Sambora, of all fucking people. The other two are also both married. These would be Isla Fisher, who is married to Sacha Baron Cohen, and Mila Kunis, who recently had a child with Ashton Kutcher. Austin Barr asks, what's your favorite hair metal bands? Well, I made a video talking about some of my favorite obscure ones. I suppose I can talk about my favorite well-known hair metal bands. These would include, well, judging by the poster back here, Poison. They would be one of them, as well as Firehouse, Danger Danger, Extreme, Dokken, Striper, White Lion, Whitesnake, Winger, Warrant, and Steelheart, and that's probably about it as far as who I would consider a major favorite in that genre. What's your favorite movies? I talked about movies in one of my previous Q&As, I believe, but my favorite movies as of late would include Pulp Fiction, Wolf of Wall Street, Scarface, Weekend at Bernie's, Back to the Future, and those would be a few movies that have really held up for me. Any tips on how to talk to girls? I do not think I'm a good person you should be asking this question to, but I'll try to give you the best tips I can from my experiences. Don't talk to them like you're anticipating something to happen, like you're anticipating a relationship, or you're anticipating her liking you back, or even if you're anticipating sex. Don't talk to her like it's clear that's what your intention is. You know, try to, you know, get to know her on, you know, a friendly enough level before you try to take things up and begin a relationship or anything like that. Also, try not to be too overly confident, because girls find that to be douchey, or too overly timid, because girls like some confidence. They aren't exactly the kind of people to go on pity dates, and even if they did, why would you want to be with someone who is only with you out of pity? And that's really the best advice I can really give. Other than that, just be yourself. You know, that's the most important thing you can really be. And one thing that girls will definitely appreciate is if you can at least be yourself and not, you know, lie to them or put up some facade where, you know, she finds out that you're a fucking phony. What's your dream car? I don't really have one. I'm not really much of a car person. All I can really ask for in a car is that it fits a bunch of music equipment and has Bluetooth as well as satellite radio. Have you ever seen Decline of Western Civilization Part 2, The Metal Years? If so, did you like it? I have seen that movie, and I do like it. It's one of the few documentaries that I have in my movie collection here. It's been a while, though, since I've seen it. I should probably revisit it soon. It shows a nice spectacle about, you know, the metal scene at that time in the late 80s when, you know, glam was at its most prominent in the mainstream and was pretty much taking over the entirety of LA, and a bunch of bands, you know, coming out on the scene wanting to get record deals. And another thing about Decline of Western Civilization is that it actually introduced me to bands such as London, Odin, and Seduce. The Joker Fan 95. Any honorable mentions or dishonorable mentions you consider for your 2015 favorite worst songs list that ultimately got cut? Not really. I mean, generally the only honorable mentions or dishonorable mentions are stuff that don't make it on the year-end charts that I would have had a good bit to say about had they been on the charts, and I was pretty disappointed when I saw that none of Kendrick Lamar's singles from To Pimp a Butterfly were anywhere to be seen on the year-end chart. Favorite and least favorite song currently on the radio from what you've heard? I'm not really sure if I can really say this is my favorite song that I've heard, but from what I've heard so far, one song that I really like, I've heard other people say it's shit, but I like it, this would be the song Panda by Designer. I listened to it at my internship before Designer got picked up, and I'm like, hey, this beat's pretty catchy, this guy's pretty good. That's a song I can expect to be on my year-end list. I'm not sure where, but there's that. And as far as my least favorite songs, I have two. These would be Work by Rihanna and No by Meghan Trainor. I hear the both of these all the fucking time at my internship, or did hear them all the fucking time at my internship, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, play something else, please. And I'll talk more about these when we get to the year end, but for now, let's just not give any spoilers. Weston Winkle asks, do you collect vinyl or CDs, and favorite bassist of all time? I do not collect vinyl because I don't have a record player. If I had a record player, I would definitely collect vinyl, because I don't really see much of a purpose for me to collect vinyl if all I'm going to do is just, you know, look at it and feel it like, oh, it feels so good. CDs I would love to collect if I had the money for it. I mean, one thing I'd like to do actually if I was really, really, really fucking rich is I want to get every single album that I have content from in my iTunes library on CD and make a giant wall of CDs like Infidel Amsterdam has in his videos. I'd love to do something like that if I had the money for it, because I would need a lot of money to get every single freaking album on fucking physical. And as far as my favorite bassist of all time, my favorite would probably have to be Billy Sheehan, because he just does so much that separates him from a lot of other bassists that I know, what with the tapping and whatnot. Other bassists I consider favorite are Steve Harris of Iron Maiden, Mike Dirnt of Green Day, and Joe Principe of Rise Against. And finally, The Wolf Eclipse 696 asks, 1. What's your favorite Iced Earth song and album? My favorite song of Iced Earth's would have to be the song Pure Evil from Night of the Storm Rider. My favorite album of theirs would probably have to be either Night of the Storm Rider or Horror Show or Burnt Offerings. 2. If you could sleep with any metal frontwoman, who would it be? Probably any of the chicks from Butcher Babies, perhaps, or the singer from The Agonist, perhaps. Or if I could go back in time to the late 80s, I would sleep with any of the members from Phantom Blue. 3. You mentioned that you don't like Cradle of Filth that much. Are there any songs by them that you do like? No, there really isn't. Cradle of Filth have just never been a band that had a sound that really appealed to me. 4. What instrument do you think is most important in a rock band? Guitar and drums, I think, are like the two most important things. Guitar because it lays a foundation for what actually makes the song with the chord progression as well as the melody. Both of those things are the main components that make up a song, and drums, I think, are pretty much the backbone of what hold those components together. So the both of those I consider to be the most important instruments. And I play both. And finally, what was the band that got you into rock music in general? This is probably going to sound generic, but probably the Beatles. I mean, like I mentioned in the What's Wrong With I made about the Beatles, when I was really, really little, my parents always used to play the compilation album One in the car, which I didn't know until after some people commented on that video. I thought it was just a partial greatest hits album, but it's a collection of their #1 hits, which explains why so many great songs in the Beatles catalog were lacking. So that was an album that got a lot of play in the car, and it was music that I really liked listening to when they put it on, so that was always a treat. And then when American Idiot came out from Green Day, that was an album that was pretty much like the soundtrack of my friend group at that time, and that was pretty much what really got me to want to learn guitar, as well as got me really interested in heavy music and whatnot. And I know people are gonna say, oh, Green Day's not heavy. I mean, it's heavy as far as mainstream music goes, so you can't really blame me for taking a lot of liking to the heaviness that they had to offer, so shut up, please. So thank you to everyone who asked questions. Next time I do a Q&A, I'm probably going to have to say, try not to ask, well, what do you think of this band? What are your thoughts on this band or genre, whatnot? I kind of want more original and unique questions and whatnot, so next time I do a Q&A, I'm probably going to make that a rule. I mean, there's nothing wrong with asking me my opinions on something, but, you know, I kind of want the Q&A to be more or less diverse, if you know what I mean. So, thank you for watching this video, take care, and have a nice day. I'm Shades, and I'll see you next time. And I don't think I've ever worn this shirt in a video before. I got this Coheed and Cambria shirt, this really nice little 90s looking shirt when I saw them at the beginning of March. Really nice show.